Hi everyone, this is Queenie G from Queenie's Painting Nook, where I hope you realize old is the new, and through your treasures your legacy will live on for another generation to enjoy. Guess what I'm doing today? I took the cups off the little cup spinner that I made with the Dixie Belle Alice in Wonderland transfer. Hoping you can see that. So I put these cups on the spinner because I poured resin on them. I want to show you how beautiful they are. Look at that sheen. I just love them. So these are the larger travel mugs. I did 2 of them the other night on a live, and there we go. Now there's no glare. I even put an Alice in Wonderland sticker on the bottom of this one. I love it. So I wanted to show you because now I'm doing the wine glasses, because guess what? Mama needs a little juice. But these are also great sippy cups for kids. These would be lovely for a little girl or boy's birthday party where they drank out of the cup and then you gave it to them to take home as a favor. Wouldn't that be freaking awesome? I love it. I just love these. So I already put the little insert in, and you know you got to put the insert in. It depends on the size of the cup you're using. So these are the wine mugs, travel mugs, toddler sippy cups, whatever you want to call them. And then I inserted the tube in the inside. Then I'm going to hook this up on the spinner. Once you get it on the spinner, you tighten it up with the little screws here. I got the little screws. You tighten them up with the screws. That way when they spin, the arm won't come off, okay? So you get all this tightened up. And what I did was I prepared my tray because resin is like water and it will drip everywhere, okay? So I prepared my tray by taking press and seal. Press and seal is your friend. I even do press and seal when I am painting. Sometimes I line the tray with press and seal if I'm using a roller. Then I can just take the press and seal off and it keeps everything super, super clean. So this right here is the press and seal that I use. I put it on the tray and then I also line the tray with parchment paper. I get this super large parchment paper because guess what? It's just not for cooking anymore. I use it for crafts all the time because it really protects my table. It cleans up so nicely and boom, you just can get rid of it and it's perfect. And sometimes I wipe it off and reuse it. Look at the size of these sheets. 16 by 24. I get this huge parchment paper, but it makes great crafting uses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the resin. So I lined everything. Let me just go back. I'm scrolling here. Sorry. I lined everything with the parchment paper. I have my little 2-cup spinner here. Then after I put the press and seal on there, I got the parchment paper here. I'm ready to go. You just want to make sure your surface is level. These are going to spin after I put this resin on for about maybe 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. It's going to be dry to the touch in 8 hours, but this is a casting resin. A coating resin. I'm sorry, it's not a casting resin. It's a coating resin. So the coating resins are like for tabletops and all kinds of artwork. But the casting resin, you can get like the amazing casting resin, and it's like ready in 10 minutes. The working time's only a minute. This working time, you have like so much working time with this Envirotech Light resin. I like to use this Envirotech Light because it's low VOCs. I get migraines and it doesn't bother me. I hope you can see the box there. It's the Envirotech Light resin. I just have it in a lot bigger bottles. You want to use equal parts. This isn't marked A and B. It's just you use equal parts. You put them both in a container, you mix them for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, you dump it in another container and mix for 1 more minute. That way you know everything's thoroughly mixed and you get everything from the bottom to the top. And if you don't mix it properly, you're not gonna get your resin to set up and it's just gonna be a sticky mess. So really mixing is the key, and then also making sure that you let it sit there for the appropriate amount of time. I usually, when I'm mixing resin, I always make too much. Just because, you know, I have my containers here, it's hard to judge what you need, and so I always pour too much. For the leftover resin, I like to have some molds on hand, and they're silicone molds. I did this last time. I mixed some ink in my resin to make it this color, so when I go to use my molds, I can just color them with gilding wax instead of painting them. I love the Dixie Belle gilding wax. I'm a Dixie Belle retailer, a premier, well, I should say elite retailer now, because I also sell the complete silk line. I'm located in North Tonawanda, New York, inside the Old Chapel Antique and Artisan Market, and my business is Queenie's Painting Nook. But I use, back to this, I use these molds a lot. And since I always pour excess resin more than I need, I do the molds, and then I just save these molds in bags until I need them. You can see that detail on that. It's beautiful. And then I'll put the gilding wax on there and use this on a project. I just don't want to waste the resin. You know, you don't want to throw it out. So I do have, this is like a first gen IOD Prima mold. It's called Antoinette. And then I have this one called Reflections. I poured this one as well the other night. Look at the detail on that. It's so beautiful. So don't waste your excess resin. Make sure you have some molds on hand. So if you do have a little extra, you can pour it in the mold, save the molds till later, till you need them. And then you can go back and you can either paint these, or you can use your gilding wax on there, or you can do both, paint them and gilding wax. I like to, like I said, put the little ink in there. That way it colors the resin, but I wait until after I'm done with what I need for my project. Then I color it. I have this first generation ink from Prima and IOD. It's called Rotten Stone. It's just this huge container. I don't know if I bought this like 5 years ago, but I always go back to this color. I love it. It's like a green black, and I use it for so many things. And it lasts so long. So if you have ink, if you want to put glitter in there, you know, whatever you want to do when you're pouring your molds, I just like to color them up because just for me, it's easier. But back to the matter at hand, we're going to be mixing this resin up, and I just want to show you this real quick. Always make sure you have gloves, okay? You want to have some gloves on hand because it gets a little messy. And then you want to have disposable containers. I have all kinds of yogurt containers, Cool Whip containers, cottage cheese containers, you know, whatever you have on hand. But I'm going to mix it in the smaller container first, and then I'm going to transfer it to the large container because it gives me more control when I'm holding it and I go to pour, okay? So I like these little plastic ones that you can squeeze a little bit. So back to this, we're using the Envirotech light resin, okay? And you just want to do equal parts. It doesn't matter which one you pour in first, okay? One is a resin and one is your hardener, okay? And I'm going to measure here. I got my little cup, and I'm going to try to get it exact because I have been mixing a lot of resin lately. But I don't want to mix too much this time. I'm going to try to get it right where I want it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do exactly this time, but we'll see how much I have left over. I want to go real slow because I'm almost up to the line. There we go. And I'm going to cap it right away. I'll clean that up afterwards. I just don't want to knock it over. All right, so let me see here. This is part B, but let me make sure when I lift it up, you want it on something level. Oh yeah, I can see my line. I'm going to dump it in the first container. Then I'm going to use my little stick here, and I'm going to be able to set this stick down right on top of my parchment paper because we don't care about the parchment paper. It can get all gunky, but you don't want to set this on a tabletop or on your tablecloth or anything that you're not going to dispose of because you don't want to ruin something and then be upset. So always be careful when you're pouring the resin. It's a sticky mess until it sets up, but the results are phenomenal. Let me tell you, I put this on tabletops. I've done it on the cups now. I've done it on picture frames. I've done it on mirrors. You can seal your Dixie Belle transfers with the resin if you put them on glass or if you put them on a mirror. Some people think you can't seal, but you can seal the Dixie Belle transfers. I love them. They got some really great ones. You can seal these with resin. Next, I'm gonna do some projects with my second favorite. Can you see that? The sunflowers? Let me turn it so you can see. Well, they're on there and they're beautiful. I'm also making some welcome signs with them. I'm very excited about that. All right, let me mix this in. Have to get equal amounts here, and I know where I'm going now on my line because it was up here. I know exactly where it was, and I want it to be perfect. Without equal amounts, like I said, it's not gonna set. Even if you go through the whole mixing process with the time, it's not gonna set if you don't get equal amounts. I can't tell you that enough times. Sometimes, you know, you're like, it's not setting up, it's not setting up. The other thing that dictates if it sets up or not is if it's humid, the temperature in your area. You know, resin doesn't like to be cold. It likes to be in like 65 degrees or higher. So that will affect your setup time if it's cooler in your area. Okay, so now that I have that dumped in, I'm gonna start mixing. And because this is a shallow container, I'm gonna mix this slow. And I'm looking at the time up there. So I have to be careful with this because there, and I turn my spinners on as well because I want them ready. And I have to stir this now for 2 minutes, you know, trying to get everything off the bottom. And it's okay if you get bubbles because I'm gonna use the heat gun, and after about, I think 15 minutes, the bubbles come to the top, but I've seen them come to the top even faster. And on these, I did put the painter's tape, the yellow painter's tape, on the inside of the mugs because I don't want the resin to get up over the top. I want to be able to put the lids back on. So I just did that for some protection, and also it helps protect your insert so it doesn't get all gunky. So it's just a little good tip to do that. So you want to mix this, like I said, for 2 minutes, and then after you mix it in this container, you dump it into a new container and you mix for 1 more minute. That way you know you've incorporated both parts together equally, and it's just going to ensure that you have a great solid resin coating on your project. Yeah, this really, it has a little bit of an odor, but not like some of the resins I've used. This really does have very low odor, so that's why I like to use this. All right. I think we only have 10 seconds left. And then I'm gonna dump it in. Here we go. Now we're gonna go into the next container. And you make sure you get it all, and that way it's gonna ensure that your resin sets up beautifully. Resin is so fun. I don't know, sometimes people are afraid of it, but I've ordered some molds, jewelry molds, and I'm really just to make for gifts, you know, because every time you're pouring, it's really hard to get exactly what you need. I mean, unless you've been doing this for like 25 years, you know, you're gonna make a mistake and you're gonna pour extra. At least I do. So now I'm gonna mix for a minute. And I'm not flipping out about the time. I'm not flipping out about, oh, I gotta hurry, because this is a coating resin. It gives you a lot more working time, so you're okay with that. think I'm almost at a minute now. This is just awesome. It's gonna come out great. I had a silicone spatula that I use. I love using the silicone spatulas, but unfortunately I didn't wash it. And you can wipe and wash them off before they set up. And then when I went to pull it apart, it like broke apart on me because it was super, super old. I think it was brittle. I got to go back to the dollar store and get another one. I love them spatulas you get right at the dollar store. They sell the Betty Crocker, the red ones, for $1. The silicones are just so nice. All right, now we're gonna pour this. I'm gonna stand up. You ready? I'm so excited. So you just want to pour slowly. Here we go. And I'm not gonna start pouring right away up to the top of the rim. I want to make sure I get the bottoms really well because these wine mugs are a little fatter at the base. So they're not a perfect cylinder like the first batch that I poured. They were totally even, you know, top to bottom. Make sure you get the bottom too. And you just want to rub it around and just go slow. Like I said, you got time. And yeah, you're going to waste some, but it's okay. I love this. Of course, it's a lot neater to do when you have the spatula. Let me tell you, it is. But that's okay. We're gonna wing it today and we're just gonna go with this, okay? And then you just wanna look and see if you got it all coated evenly. You can go back and do several coats too after this dries. You don't have to just do one, especially if you're doing glitter. I thought this would be pretty with the Alice in Wonderland transfer and then some pink glitter. I was like, girl, everybody loves glitter, but in case some adults buy these, I don't know, a lot of adults love glitter too. I decided just to go with the transfer right now, and then we'll see. All right, so let me do this one. And you just want to go slow and get it all around. I'm going to show you after I'm done. I use the Dixie Belle finishing pad anytime I'm doing these transfers because it really helps burnish them really well onto your surface. So when you go to put any kind of top coat on there, they don't lift. And you don't want your transfer to lift. Lifting makes you cry. So we don't want it to lift. And to ensure that it doesn't lift, you have to make sure that you burnish it really well. Now say you get some excess on your mug towards the top and it's like sticking out or sticking up, it's impeding the placement of your lid. It's okay, you can sand it down. That's what I love about the resin. You can sand it, you can go back, you can do multiple layers. It's just fun. I mean, it's not fun if you have a little kid and you're doing a project and they want to see instant results because it does take time. You have to be patient. You know, not everything is lickety-split. So just take your time and, oh man, these are going to be adorable. I just love it. I love it. I just want to put a little excess up towards the top here, and that's just because I just want to make sure I don't miss any. Let me make sure this is looking good. This is spinning nice. I just want to make sure I have enough on there everywhere. So what I do after, I just look to make sure that, I'm going to take these gloves off and put another pair on, that I got it all coated before I get my heat gun. I kind of get the resin if I see any places where it missed, and make sure you really look at the bottoms too, because you can pick this right up off your parchment paper and put it back on. That's what I love about this parchment paper. It's so nice. So yeah, I really want to make sure that it's all in my base too, because the base on these wine mugs have a little bit of a lip. So then you take off your gloves, very carefully, I'm going to set them down and grab another pair, because if I go to touch my resin, I don't want to do it with my bare hands. Everything's a chemical and you just want to be cautious, and I really should have had my glasses on, but I don't like the light ring, and I have these two other lights that I purchased that don't give off enough light for me, so then I purchased a third light and I have to wait to put it together. Now this is going to be a little loud, excuse me for a second, but I want to get some of these bubbles out. So this is a heat gun. Please be very careful with this. This gets extremely hot. This is just a Wagner one. It sits up. It's really nice. And it has two settings. So you want to turn it on. And you're just going to go back and forth, not too close, because you don't want to burn the resin where you're too close to it and it starts smoking. So just be careful and move your heat gun back and forth. And this is just going to help all the bubbles dissipate. I mean, it is just so cool. It is a really neat process. One thing I did notice when I'm using it on the white mugs show a lot of the bubbles. So you're really going to use your heat gun to get the bubbles to dissipate. Just because it shows up a little more on white. It has nothing to do with the transfers or the resin. It just has to do with the background underneath it. But I love the white mugs because I really felt that it made this design pop, and it just looks so good. I was so excited when I was like, oh, use the Alice in Wonderland. And then my daughter, who's 36, was like, what do you mean, little girls? I want them. I love them. I think they're so cool. So I'm going to make her some. You can get these mugs anywhere. See, there's a little piece there that isn't totally... And then when this comes back around, it will even it out again. So if you pushed it and you feel like, oh, there's no resin in that spot, it's okay. So let me get some more here. Now wait for that spot. There it is. To come around again. And then you can just dab it on there. Easy peasy. Just like our Easy Peasy Spray Wax, huh, from Dixie Belle. Everything's a Dixie Belle saying to me. It's so funny. All right, so here we go. Now we are doing the next one. I love this spinner. I got it for Christmas. The elf bought it for me. So I'm very excited. I did request it, and it really got great reviews. And it was the one that had the 2 cups. So I was so excited because it takes a while for this to set up. You want to at least be able to do 2 at a time. So it's really coming out great. I usually turn the heat gun off and I let it spin for a little bit longer, and then I'll go back and check to see if there's any more bubbles. So I just wanted to show you this real quick, and then I'm going to pour the excess resin in my molds I have here, and I'm also going to be adding a little bit of this ink because I like my molds just to be a little bit darker. It's just easier for me if I'm painting them. I do make some that I don't put the dye in or the ink, but this time I used up that batch, so I want to do the ones with the ink in there. All right, so that is spinning nicely. These mugs are going to be fabulous. I'm very, very excited. So what I'm going to do next, I go through a lot of gloves, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this ink and I'm just going to add a little bit to my extra resin that I have here. I mean, just a dab will do ya. So you dump that in, then you take your, I've been using these bamboo sticks. I want to see if you can see this. It will turn this a dark green. It's green, but it looks black. It's so cool. I love doing this. And then you dump it in your molds. And then I'll come down, like I said, in 6 to 8 hours. They'll be dry to the touch where I can turn my spinner off. And then I'll just let them sit here. Usually within 72 hours, they're ready to go. Now, say you're doing these molds and you want to go around a corner. You can go back with these molds and put them either in hot water, or you can put the molds in the microwave and it will soften them up so you can bend them. I just really, really like the edge with the resin. I do use air dry clay, but I found when I do the resin, I just get a really super clean finish. So once you get it in there, you don't want to overfill it. If you do, don't flip out about it. It's okay if you overfill it, because you can go back and get a really smooth edge, a flat edge I should say, if you sand it. So it's not a big deal. So I'm going to do this other large one I got here. And the one thing I forgot to mention is make sure when you're doing this that your surface is level. And remember, the resin is like water, so it's gonna run. So you want to make sure if you're sealing up a window, because I do seal my windows like I was saying, you want to make sure that everything is caulked and glued in place so that your resin does not leak out the bottom of your window, because it will if it's not sealed up. It's just like water. I mean, you can't put water in a cardboard box and expect it not to move. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when you're pouring your resin, make sure that your surface is level, okay? Because if your surface isn't level, I mean, sometimes it's not a big deal if you're doing clear resin and you're doing it on a window. People aren't looking to see that it's the exact measurement, but you don't want it running all the way over to one side and being cockeyed. So always make sure your surface is level. And like I said, if you over pour your molds, it's okay. You can sand them in the back to get a nice, smooth, flat finish. And then I'm gonna take my gloves here. I like to do this. Wipe off the stick. And then I just leave the stick here. I just have a little bit of leftover. That's really not bad. Maybe I will pour this one little mold. I don't usually use this one a lot, but just because I don't want to waste anything, I'm gonna do it this time. I think I have enough to fill up this whole mold, and I will be so excited when there isn't any waste. Because, you know, the resin is expensive. So you really want to try to have some extra pieces laying around so you can use them up. I mean, let's face it, everything's expensive these days. We don't want to waste stuff. There we go. That should do it. I'll put this in there. I have a little excess drip here. I'm just going to wipe it like that. Wipe it on this. I keep a nice a sheet underneath it. I get it state sales on my table, and we're ready to go. So there you go. If you have any questions, please follow me on Facebook at Queenie's Painting Nook or on Instagram at Queenie's Painting Nook. And again, we're using the Envirotech Light Resin. I hope you can see that. We're making these wine and drink mugs, even sippy cups, and we are using the Dixie Belle Alice in Wonderland Bells and Bows transfer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you tune in again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.